2. Fingers crossed. My settings should be okay. Alright, so hello. It's been a while. I am jumping on especially today to do our video on how to become unflappable using the 2 P's and the 2 C's: practice, presence, curiosity, and compassion. Beautiful. Alright, so I actually received this not worded as such, but effectively I had an inquiry from a coaching client about how to not let ourselves be impacted by either others, whether it be emotionally, by others who have a different idea about the directions that we choose for ourselves. So when I started pulling this apart, I'm like, well, what is this? What are we actually aiming for here? And unflappable was really the most fun and a suitable word to utilize. And then when I was sort of like briefly coming up with like, well, what are the aspects that we want to bring in that help and support us in having this ability to be unflappable? Practice, presence, curiosity, and compassion were really were what resonated. Okay, so starting off with practice. So particularly for people who have gone and sought support, intervention, counseling, therapy, coaching, any modality. Okay, we have these amazing sessions. Quite often we have big breakthroughs. We realize where we're getting stuck. We might have a healing, some emotional processing, some trauma shift out of our system, and it's amazing. And then we go back to the real world. And this is really where we get to see the merit of the sessions that we've had. When it really gets tested in the real world, we get to see if we're put into certain situations, do we adjust our behavior and our actions from what we used to do since having, this new awareness, this intervention, this, whatever the modality was. Are we going to do what we've always done, or are we now different? Okay, and effectively what these situations are providing us is to actually help us uncover, is there any residual healing required? Is everything complete? Are you now in full alignment as a result of the shifts that we've had? So the question is, how in alignment am I? Okay. So we have these epiphanies, we have these new awarenesses, and effectively we get to now practice our new skills. Okay. And like any new skill, at the beginning we're like babies, learning to crawl, or learning to walk, or learning to ride a bike for the first time. Okay, we don't always get it right the first time. In fact, we rarely do. The whole concept of mastery, the 10,000 hours of practice to get that level of mastery. Okay, so this idea that we're just going to be bang, unflappable, yeah, nice. Is that realistic? Okay, so like any new skill, perhaps I just want to initially be able to observe myself, okay, and notice what I'm doing, noticing the tension, the friction, the resistance, the desire to just not desire, the old pathways being taken. It's like, oh, I'm doing that thing that I thought I would never do again, and here I am doing it. Okay, so expecting perfection right from the get-go, I don't, no one here is the Dalai Lama, although he's not getting a good rap at the moment, so not an ideal example. But you know, we're not all peace, love, and mung beans all of the time. So, is what you're wanting, is this idea about being unflappable, is that even realistic right now? Okay, is it possible to have mastery in being unflappable immediately all of the time, or are there going to be circumstances that are going to pull us back in and test us and see how in alignment am I? Okay, so you know, start with getting better at the 1%. Can I be better than I was yesterday? Okay, can I improve 1 to 10%, not necessarily 100%. So looking at decreasing the situations that tend to make us flappable, okay? Or is it that my goal is that I rebound from when I'm flat to being peaceful and calmer quicker? So my rate of recovery or rebounding from it being slipping up and triggered gets shorter, okay, or being triggered less frequently. That might perhaps be more realistic, okay. Be willing to be good at not being good at any skill that you want to improve at. Quite often people give up because they're not getting it right the first time, but they're not getting that level of mastery early on. If you can accept and be good at not being good at something and continue down that path anyway, that enhances our capacity to become unflappable in the long run. Okay, that may take many years, and you know, at the end of the day, I'm still human. Okay, so that's the practice piece. The presence piece is the next one, and this is where we're really putting things into action. So when I'm being triggered, when someone's putting pressure on me, where I can feel myself disagreeing with someone, okay, have I got the ability to be present? And by that means being able to notice myself, notice what's going on for me, notice what is the actual situation, the person, the situation that's causing me to be flapped here. Okay, bring myself to be the observer, observe everything, feelings, thoughts, judgments, the stories that are coming out as a result of the situation that I'm being in. Okay, it's actually, this is the main point. Okay, we can't be in this world and not be affected by this world. Okay, however, the step of maintaining presence through the situations is such a gift, and it's very profound initially when you haven't had this experience before. I can vividly recall the circumstances early on when I first observed myself in situations. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting really into this, I'm getting really riled up, I'm being drawn into the conflict. And it wasn't so much that I was stopping myself from being in the conflict, but having that ability to go, wow, look at me, look at what I'm doing, I'm really drawn into this, I'm really invested in this. Okay, such a powerful awareness to develop, and honestly, it's probably that is the key to all of this, to be unflappable, because the moment that we can observe ourselves whilst we're in it, then we can start to navigate and have choice. When we're in it, when we're lost in it, when we're just caught up in the conflict, the drama, or the circumstances, there's very little that can be done. We are flapped at that point. Totally. When we become the observer, we can notice what the thought patterns are. What is the judgment? What is the story that I'm using right now to keep myself safe and perhaps make a perpetrator or a villain of the person that I'm having this interaction with? Yeah. Outrage and drama are very often recognized as safe in our system. Even though we think we don't want these things, we are very often conditioned very young, and outrage and drama is really the opposite of self-responsibility, which we're not given a great grounding for in our society. So to be able to start making an enemy of the situation or the person is more common than not. And so on that, recognizing that this idea of being unflappable, to be able to have peace and calm when in conflict or when disagreeing with someone, or we're being influenced and someone's disagreeing with us, that actually peace and calm might actually be really uncomfortable. And if that's the situation, if you haven't got safety with the idea of being unflappable, I would highly recommend seeking support. So get support, seeking an intervention to create new reference points, to create safety within the thing that you want. Okay, if peace and calm, we don't have a safe reference point, it's going to make it really challenging to be able to develop your unflappable skill set. Okay. When we are able to be present, we can start to notice what power we're giving away. Very often it's because we're taking something personally. Okay, we're creating a story where, as I said, making someone into the villain, and therefore making ourselves a victim. And so just really being able to be present and notice what you're making yourself into and what you're making the other person or the circumstance into, and recognizing that there is, if we are getting caught up in it, that there's actually a healing opportunity here. We're actually out of alignment somewhere, because if we're in full alignment, then we are unflappable in that we're not going to take anything personally. We actually are just so happy and settled in who we are being and our decisions that there won't be any energy leakage. We won't be giving our power away, because we won't be questioning our decisions or who we are or what it is that is going on. Okay, if we are feeling off-centered, if we are being flapped by the situation, maybe there's actually a truth or a wisdom that we actually need to be open to hearing here. That's the first thing. Okay, is there something actually in what this person is saying? Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, am I allowing myself to actually hear what they've got to say, or are they dead wrong? Okay, but there's just something in me that's being triggered here, and therefore, again, as I said, there's a healing opportunity that's presenting itself. Okay, so it might be I'm 99% in alignment, but there's an aspect, there's a 1% part of self that's actually being impacted by the circumstance or the person or the situation. So that little aspect is the one that's getting its knickers in a twist. So that little aspect is what's causing the internal reaction on the inside. Okay, so all of this is happening in the ability to be present to what's going on, and quite often, particularly early on when we're practicing this skill set, that presence and that awareness only drops in post, when we're reviewing the situation of what's happened. Again, no need to beat myself up on that. That's the compassion piece. Okay, at least I've recognized it. So I've already progressed from, from, being totally flat, triggered, and then just, letting that spiral and circumvent and, all the negative and all of it. But it's like, just if at some point along the line, whether it's while it's happening or after, at least some awareness and presence coming into it at any point is better than none at all. We're already far further along the game if that's the case. All right. So with the aspect of self that isn't fully on board, isn't fully aligned, okay, then there is a healing opportunity there. So what that looks like is going to be totally personal to you. Okay, do your feelings work? Okay, feel into the feelings, allow it to be fully felt to completion. Okay, let it complete. Is there a young version of yourself that this aspect belongs to? Okay, then our inner child work comes through. Okay, we want to get to the point where there's no residual feeling, no residual aspect feeling discarded or left out. Okay, we're integrating it all back in. As I mentioned earlier, if we don't have a reference point for the experience that we're actually desiring, then I would recommend seeking support, be that a coach, therapist, counselor, energy healer, Reiki practitioner, whatever. Okay, take your pick. Ultimately, what we're looking for is having the whatever unflappable is for you. That might be peace, it might be openness, it might be lightness, love, compassion. For some of us, there might even be a void. Okay, if we've just done some intervention work, there may well be a space. It's just like, ooh. Ultimately, this can be done yourself, or you can do it with someone. Okay, but ultimately, it's about finding that presence, that ability to observe the circumstance and what's actually going on. Okay. So practice, presence. They're the two key ones. The two C's, curiosity and compassion, these are the types of states that are very beneficial to go into our presence and into our practice with. Okay, so being curious. We live in a world that we are culturally conditioned to be externally driven, whether that's by others or situations, everything external to ourselves. So learning a new way to be, learning to be internally driven. I don't like that word. Internally authored is a journey. Okay, and ultimately getting curious about our internal drivers instead of judging them, this gets us to resolution and being unflappable so much faster. Okay, accepting that, hey, I'm 99% in alignment, and my little 1% part, my aspect that isn't in alignment, has raised its ugly head and it might feel like 100% at the time that aspect gets triggered. Okay, so ultimately getting curious about, whoa, I totally got flapped then. What the heck? Okay, we've got some healing work to do here. Let's get curious about what this aspect is. Okay, a beautiful question, and I'm sure I've framed it in here before, is what is this moment revealing to me? What is this person, situation, and circumstance? What can I learn from this? Ultimately, what can I learn about me? What's going on inside? Okay, as opposed to blaming the other, the person, the circumstance. It's all happening externally. Bring it back in and get really curious about what's going on the inside. Where's this coming from? Haven't been triggered in so long. Ooh, where could this be coming from? What's going on? Okay, so being curious. Mentioned already the second C, compassion. So being compassionate in that I'm not always going to get this right. I'm not always going to be unflappable. It's okay. I'm human. It's all right. And that compassion piece is so important for self, and we can apply it equally for the person, the other, or the circumstance or the situation that is bringing all this stuff to the surface for us, because we're all in this game and we're all triggering each other. And so, you know, I've got an aspect that's pissed off right now, and looks like you've got an aspect that's pissed off. I wouldn't say that out loud, by the way, but I can be compassionate for our human aspects that are just like, whoa, we've all got stuff, we've all got trauma, we've all got programming that isn't beneficial to our systems, that's preventing us from having that peace and calm, unflappable state. So be okay with their truth, even if it's what's triggering off our 1% aspect that we're getting an opportunity to look at here. Even though their truth isn't necessarily ours. So be able to say to yourself and to the other, thank you so much. This is valuable information. Okay? And then whether you do it right there or whether you take it, you know, to another place, whether you go work with someone, whether you process it on your own in a quiet time in isolation. Okay, thank you so much. This is valuable information, because it is. Okay, and when we can see it through that compassionate lens, it feels a lot nicer. Okay. There was another piece there, but I'm going to save that for another time. So, practice presence. Okay, they're the two of the doings, and the curiosity and the compassions, they're the states that when we take those on, then we're putting ourselves into a more beneficial, into a more likely ability to be able to practice our presence. Yeah. And ultimately, if every time we're in a flapped situation, we look at it from this ability as an opportunity for healing and for evolution, and to, you know, collect all those aspects of ourselves back in, then we actually get better being the observer. And as the more healing happens, then we actually find ourselves in less triggering circumstances. The energy gets neutralized. I've talked about energy vortexes before. Okay, what the healing work, what the intervention allows us to do is for the dense energies, the energy vortex to dissipate. Those aspects are integrated, and then we're less likely to be triggered. We're more likely to be unflappable. Okay. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your journey to being unflappable. Thanks for listening, and yours enjoy and out.